Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Hayes, your host, and nice to be back. Well, Dave Astbury hasn't been anywhere, but I have. I've been off for a week in sunny Spain, and as Dave just said to me before we came on air, he was like, "You look very golden. You've got golden hair and golden skin." So there you go. That's what a week of not talking about Nottingham Forest can do to you. We're here for the next 30 minutes or so, depending on how long we both natter on for. We'll discuss the Forest fixtures being released today. They were released early this morning as we're recording this on Tuesday, the 18th of June. And also Brazilian keeper Carlos Miguel is pretty much set to sign. He's ready to sign on the dotted line. Forest released triggered his release clause, shall we say, yesterday, which means he will become a Forest player very, very soon. Dave, we'll get onto that in a minute. But first of all, mate, how are you? Sorry to take you away from a brilliant game of football of Georgia Turkey.
Belgium, mate,
Yeah, and I suppose, how are you? Have you been keeping busy? And I can imagine watching lots of the Euros.
yeah. I there's lots of sort of domestic life stuff that needs to be done, Max. Things that are still in the aftermath of losing mum and dad. So there's lots of things to be done regarding their house and family stuff. So that's kind of kept me busy. The personal trainer's course has been going on. I'm almost at the point of being accredited, which at the age of 60, who'd have thought me working in the gym? But there you go. And yeah, I've been watching lots of football, watching actually lots of cricket, T20 World Cup, T20 Blast. I was watching tennis this afternoon. It's Royal Ascot. Pretty much anything sports-wise, Max. I'm not a fan of Formula One, but everything. Rugby League, Challenge Cup the other week, had a good week about Robbie Burrow and stuff like that. So yeah, there's lots going on, mate. With regards to Forest, it's been quite nice not to have to dwell on everything. But you know what? When the fixtures come out, it's like the starter gun. I mean, it is quite a long way away though. This time, where are we? June the 18th. It's August 17th. I think is when the season starts. So
Yeah, it does.
it's a bit further away this year, but I'm sure it'll ratchet up as we get near to that kickoff against Bournemouth, mate.
Yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. Just quickly before we actually go on to the Euros, before we go on to the fixtures, I just wanted to actually get your thoughts, Dave, on England's first game because we know this is a Forest podcast, but there'll be lots of us watching England and hoping that we do well in all of the coming home stuff and everything. But I thought it was a good win on Sunday. I think the first group game's always difficult, but the second half wasn't great. It almost reminded me a little bit of Forest in stages, that England performance.
Yeah, I have very low expectation for England. I never expect England to win anything really. I'm, as I say, because I'm 60, I was alive when we won the World Cup. I was a toddler, but all of that time, all those fallow years without a trophy, and I don't count the tournoi, has conditioned me to think that no, England won't win a tournament. No, I always kind of think that England are mid-ranking. I thought the group actually is a little bit tougher than a lot of people give it credit for. Serbia have some good players. Denmark, we know, have got some quality players, perhaps coming to the end of their cycle. Slovenia, no mugs. And I always kind of fear for England. So I'm not one of these that thinks so. It seems to me what happens, Max, we get like England are going to get all these words, all this hype, all this expectation, all this hyperbole. We come to the game, and then as soon as it isn't like a 4 or 5-0 spectacular thrashing of the opposition, out comes the hand wringing and the inquests and the autopsies and all this kind of. It's tournament football. All I wanted at the weekend was a win. I didn't care if England play like that for 6 games on the trot. I'll be chuffed to bits. And actually, I quite like teams that play poorly, or not poorly. I wouldn't say England were poor. The first 35 minutes I thought was superb. I thought they played really, really well. And then they just kind of, it's very difficult to maintain it for 90 minutes. They just kind of lost their mojo a little bit. Yeah. And, Serbia got Vlahovic up front. Mitrovic is no more. They've got some good players in that side who are dotted about good clubs in Europe. So, we sometimes fall prey to this English exceptionalism. We're English, therefore we're superior, therefore we only have to turn up to win. And I don't subscribe to any of that. you know, I kind of see as, you know, I'd like some humility. But there were some really good performances. Jude.
Yeah, he's a great
Jude,
player and he speaks so well, doesn't he? I was thinking that.
Jude may well end up being one of our greatest ever players if he keeps his feet on the ground. And I think he's got a brilliant family support network with his mum and dad and obviously his brother. He speaks beautifully. He's a really he's just so socially aware. I mean, physically, he's so imposing. He's like the things he can. I mean, he hit one pass on the volley across the field. It was just like he was out in the playground at school. He's a wonderful player, Jude. Mark Gurhey, I thought played really, really well. Had a good game. You know, I don't think we missed, you know, Harry Maguire that much. Where I think, you know, a lot of people said we might miss Harry. Well, I thought Mark Gurhey played well. I thought Conor Gallagher and Jared Bowen came on and gave us a little bit of impetus towards the end. Harry Kane sort of took one for the team. It's better for him not to drop deep because Jude's filling that space. You know, there are conundrums. There are things to work on. What do we do with Phil Foden? Wonderful player, but you know, can we fit him in? Trent as well. Trent did some good things and some not so good things. You know, I'm not for sort of, you know, so many people just sort of condemn on the basis of like 45 minutes or 90 minutes. You know, as far as I'm concerned, all I wanted on Sunday night was a win. I didn't care how we did. And is there that much difference between what England did against Serbia to what France did against Austria?
Good point.
No, not much. And our talisman, if that's Jude is fine and ready to go and stuff. France's talisman, and I knew what had happened as soon as I saw it. You know, Kylian Mbappe's broke his nose, and that's not pleasant. So he's on about playing. I'm sure he'll do the heroic thing. He's the captain of his country, but it's not going to be comfortable for him playing with a mask on, and he's probably going to have trouble breathing because that looked a really bad. You saw at the time it was sort of like that, you know. So the thing is, you know, tournament football.
We'll see.
We'll see. I don't think we'll win it. I've never thought we would win it.
See, my youthful optimism thinks we will, Dave, but that's just me being young.
Look, I'd rather just sort of, you know, I don't like getting carried away making big statements, as you know. I think if we can find the right blend, I think we've got the tools to do the job. I think we've got the potential to do it. But there are some good teams in this competition. Spain, I think, are really good. Obviously, France won't be far away. Germany, with like Musiala and Wirtz, they look really sharp. This lot tonight, Portugal, they've got a hellishly deep squad as well. You know, so it's the thing is there isn't a real clear favourite to me at the moment. That you know makes it interesting viewing. But it's a win. We'll see what happens against Denmark. I mean, that's not going to be easy, but just go game by game, really.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. We'll see. Right, let's turn our attention to Forest because realistically, that's all we care about deep down. The fixtures were released today. I won't go through all of them because we'll be here till Christmas. Forest start the season at home to Bournemouth on August the 17th. It's nice to have a home game. I feel like we haven't had one in years. Then it's the first away trip of the season to newly promoted Southampton. That won't be easy.
No.
Forest then play Man United and Man City just in the space of a couple of days at the start of December, so we might as well all stay in Manchester. And Forest have a home fixture on Boxing Day to Tottenham Hotspur, and the Reds also finished the season with a home trip against Chelsea. So all in all, Dave, it's quite a nice fixture list. When they came out this morning and, you know, I kind of went on Twitter as you do and you see the reaction, I actually thought, you know what, it's a nice opening month, not an easy because it's never an easy run in football and certainly the Premier League, but it's a nice fixture list and you just start to think about next season as well, don't you?
Do you know what, Max? My first thought, if you compare the fixture list that came out this morning to the two that have gone before in the Premier League, you know, the first year we were back, that was a very, very difficult start. I think we played Newcastle, Tottenham, Liverpool quite early on, Manchester City quite early on. We lost 6-0. Last year, the away start was like monumental. It was like, you know, Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea and City. Okay, we had Sheffield United and Burnley first two games. And it seemed in those two fixture lists like, right, that month there is kind of horrid Big 6 month, if you like, and this month over here is horrid Big 6 month. What I felt with the fixture is my first sort of take on it, Max, was that if you like, the big guns are relatively evenly distributed throughout the season. So Liverpool are quite early on. Obviously, we get City and United together, and then Arsenal here and there, and Tottenham Boxing Day. But there isn't a month you look at. Some teams. So I mean, you take Ipswich, right?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Premier League. Liverpool at home, Manchester City away. Yeah. And I had to have Kieran McKenna came on. He straight batted it. A super lad, smashing coach. And he went, it's a great start for us, which I guess in the context of for Ipswich Town, the awe of being in the Premier League to go to play those two teams is, but are they going to get any points? You would think probably not. Whereas you look at Forest start, and I think you're absolutely right. The Southampton game, I mean, that'll be a carnival for Southampton and Forest. If Forest have got some, backbone and go and be party poopers, that would be great. I mean, Bournemouth, we haven't beaten Bournemouth in 8 attempts. It's almost like, I always think Bournemouth are too small for us to beat them. If they were a bigger club, I think we'd beat them more often. They make a virtue of being a cottage industry compared to our, multinational, if you like. But I would like to lay that bogey first game of the season. I mean, I'd almost feel like beating Bournemouth in any way, shape, or form would be a step forward, because they are a bogey to us. They've won the last 3 at the City Ground. And, and a couple of them have been really painful defeats where we've been in the game and lost it, especially the one I think we were 2-0 up a couple of seasons back, so it'd be nice to beat Bournemouth. I mean, their recruitment will be good again. Whether they keep hold of Solanke again is another matter. I mean, the thing is, you could quite just glibly say those first 3 games are winnable fixtures, but they're not without their hazards. No game is without its hazards. It's the Premier League. The whole platform is how difficult these other teams are these other 19 teams are to play against, and nobody, nobody's going to sort of say, it's Nottingham Forest. Anybody thinking that Nottingham Forest is an easy game, if you support another club, don't be foolish enough to write us off. So I think what is interesting. We won't have to get up really, really early on Boxing Day to travel, miles to Newcastle like we did last year. We can just pop around the corner and Tottenham have to come to us. I find it interesting that the midweekers, I think there are 4 midweek games.
Yeah, there are.
City, Arsenal, Liverpool and United. And 3 of those midweekers are at home, which is great for our supporters. Quite easily, Max, those midweek fixtures could have been Brighton, Bournemouth and Southampton, and our fans who are, obviously we're in a cost of living crisis. We all love our football, but there are other things as well. People having to find the time and the funds to travel that far on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night. I think it's good that we don't have to do that. So I do think, Max, that the fixture list is a little kinder. I mean, I think the run-in is Palace, Leicester, West Ham and Chelsea.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So the run-in isn't quite as tricky. And I'll tell you, mate, I've just been, we will be in everybody's relegation conversation. That's going to happen because we were the ones who just about kept our heads above the parapet. I think we had the lowest points total for any team that survived in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they'd have given us 4 back, then we might have been better off, but here and there. But I just got this funny feeling that we'll be a bit under the radar. We'll be a bit written off. And I remember that if I go back to the start of this time last season, everybody wrote Wolves off. Everybody said, Wolves are good. Lopetegui just walked out. They were having to sell players. You thought, Wolves are as good as gone. Wolves were like, say, 2 months from the end of the season. And I just got a funny feeling that that'll be us. I don't know why. I'll probably get clipped on, in 10 months. Saying, Dave Astbury said we'd be all right. But I just got a feeling that we'll be all right. Because we'll be unheralded. I mean, I saw a great comment today where somebody said, just like a really, really quiet season for Forest, where we're not, in the spotlight for points deductions and whatever else and fighting relegation. I'd love us to have a season. I'd love us to have the sort of season that Wolves had last year, or that Fulham have had the last 2 years, or some, that Palace do. That'd be ideal for us, really. But I do think the fixture list gives us a chance if we've got our wits about us and we can play to our ability. And there is a lot of ability in our side. I'd love us beating Bournemouth. I thought would be a really big thing. I'd almost rather beat. I mean, we've beaten Liverpool since we come up. We've run City close. We've beaten Arsenal. We've beaten Liverpool. We've beaten Chelsea. It's I of all the teams in this league, and it's because maybe I lived there for so long. Bournemouth are the team I really want to beat. So if we come out that Saturday afternoon in August and we've beaten Bournemouth, I'd be like, hey, maybe there is something. But the thing is, we're 2 months away from it, Max.
Yeah.
It's all supposition, mate, and hearsay. But I think, yeah, I think of the first 3 games, I think the Southampton one is very difficult. If we to play a newly promoted side, their first home game of the season, St Mary's will be rammed that night. It'll be very noisy, and Russell Martin's a good manager, and he'll have them ready. I'm sure they'll make some good signings. So I think that'll be a very difficult game. But I'd like to think we can give Bournemouth and Wolves something to think about in those first 2 home games. I mean, the other thing is as well, there are going to be, I think it's 4 international breaks. So, we're not playing any European football. So our lads will get, the ones that aren't on international duty. But then having said that, there's quite a lot of ours on international duty. They'll get some time off. So I just think the seasons for us, and I didn't think this the 2 seasons previous, I just think it's not more nicely sort of spaced out and distributed, so.
Yeah. No,
looking forward to going to it again, mate. You know what I mean? It's going to be brilliant.
No, it's going to be great, and I think, as you said, I think with the surprise factor, and I think also for Forest with, 3rd season in the Premier League now back, everyone knows how the Premier League operates now off the pitch. So there's that sense of almost you get a little bit comfortable, and I think that is a good thing. It can be a negative thing at times, but I think it's a good thing mainly because Forest have almost properly found their toes now in such a difficult division, and it won't be easy. But you just hope, wouldn't you, Dave, that Forest will learn from their mistakes, not just on the pitch with Nuno and with players and tactical approaches, but also off the pitch, avoiding points deductions, complying with Premier League rules, albeit we might disagree with them. It's just about almost finding your feet. And for Forest's 3rd season, you've got to hope for it just to be slow and steady progress again.
Absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree more. We've had, I mean, our history is quite tumultuous if you look at it, but I'm not sure we've had 2 seasons quite as high profile and tumultuous as the couple that we've just had. My fervent hope is that we look at what we did that first season when we stayed up. We look at what we did last season, and we've made plenty of mistakes, but we're still a Premier League team for the 3rd consecutive year. And there are teams that have gone through this process previously. I mean, I'm going to say it again. Brighton and Hove Albion went through it. They were in a relegation scrap. I think first 2 or 3 years they were in the Premier League, and they were like right above the trapdoor. And they kind of managed to grit their teeth. They took on board the lessons that they were taught. I'm hoping that we do the same thing. And look at Brighton now. They're, pretty much an established Premier League club with very few sort of worries, really. They seem to, change comes and goes at Brighton, and they seem to deal with it and, move seamlessly on. That's huge credit to them, huge credit to their owner and their setup there. Tony Bloom's a really good guy at Brighton. And I like to think that we will do a similar thing. You pay your dues, really. So having said that, the opposite of that is Leeds United had 2 seasons. And when it came to the 3rd season, just fell away. So it can go one of 2 ways. I hope we go the Brighton way rather than the Leeds are falling apart again way. You know what I mean? So
he says wearing a Joy Division top. I knew what you did there, Dave.
Honestly, mate, I love me Joy Division, best band ever. But I just think that Nuno, towards the end of the season, I mean, what I saw at Burnley that last day, and you were there, mate, and you saw a great team spirit. They looked a happy bunch.
Yep.
And it looked like maybe, they'll sit down and say, well, we don't want any more points deductions. We don't want any more this, that, and the other. I mean, don't want any points deductions. It'd be nice to defend some set pieces properly. And it'd be really nice to get into good positions like we did on so many occasions last year, where we played some really, really good football and then never got our just rewards for it because we couldn't manage games out. So those are the key lessons. And those key lessons, Max, it's not rocket science, and it's not like it's stuff that people haven't said before. Everybody associated with our fantastic club inside the city ground and around it, like we are, knows what the issues are. And if we get 2 months into the season and we're having the same conversation, it'll be incredibly tiresome.
Yeah, well,
I mean, like you take last season, the goalkeeping question was the one that vexed us in the early part of the season. Matt Sells comes in, those conversations stopped. And it'd be nice to, and we had the conversations about Chris Wood. Would he do it? Was he past his best? Chris answered those. And congratulations to him and his wife.
Yeah, congrats.
Got married, so dear old Woody, fair play to him. So it's you don't want to be sort of revisiting old scars, if you like, Max. And it'd be nice to think that Forest take the lessons on board and then quietly progress. It'd be nice for people not to be noticing us, really.
Yeah, go under the radar.
And keep away the unwanted attention, because I think we personally speaking, I felt we drew too much of that to us last year.
Yeah, for sure. Right, we'll move on to the second half of the podcast because there's only so much we can talk about with fixtures being released. There's not much else to say other than Forest will play a different team every week, and you never know. They'll probably concede a set piece in the first 3 minutes of the season. After all of this hype about the new one. Right, let's move on to a player that's been linked with Forest loads. You'll have seen it all over social media. And Forest basically triggered his release clause yesterday. I can't get the word out today.
Easy for you, Carlos.
I know, yeah. Carlos Miguel, who is a Brazilian goalkeeper. Forest continue their excellent scouting links in Brazil. He is from Corinthians in the Brazilian league there. So he is pretty much set to sign, I'd imagine probably in the next few days, if not the start of next week, given work, permit and everything like that. And he's a very, very talented player, and he's got plaudits all over from in particular Brazilian journalists you'll have seen in the media and some other podcasts as well. Lots of Brazilian fans have credited this guy. It's supposed to be around the 3.4 million move, so it's a low financial deal which will benefit Forest in a way, given we know all of the financial fair play stuff. But Forest see this as a good move. Dave, just your thoughts on him, and I know it's difficult because we haven't really seen much of him, and it's very hard to say. But it's another Brazilian link. Given the Brazilian players we've had in the past and still do in the present, in particular Murillo, it can't be a bad thing. It's a bit of a low-risk deal because it's not that much money Forest are spending on a player. And it's another option to either start over Matt Sells if Nuno sees fit, or he's a very, very good alternative as a number 2 to Matt Sells.
I mean, in all honesty, Max, I don't know anything about the lad. I haven't seen. I could go and look on YouTube at highlight reels and all that kind of stuff.
I'll read you some stats in a minute.
So, I mean, I wonder if, like, somebody has said to Murillo, "Hey, your mate, this goalkeeper, what's he like?" You know what I mean? And maybe Murillo, has said, "Oh, he's not bad. He's this, that, and the other." Because obviously Murillo was Corinthians, and so maybe it's a sort of we're getting a little Brazilian enclave in Nottingham. I mean, we've got obviously Murillo's still with us. What super lad he is, isn't he? Lovely player. Not the finished article, the stuff to some rough edges to be polished up. He's here. Danilo's here. Obviously, the most beautiful human being that ever lived is sort of gone, and fair play to him. What career he's had, Felipe. And you kind of think, well, let's hope it's a Murillo-esque deal, which has proved to be an excellent deal for Forest. Because when it comes at this, the lad moves on, he's going to move on for a lot more than we paid for him, which is what we've aspired to for so long, bringing players in, developing them, selling them on at profit, to get some more sound business sense. The sort of thing that Brentford in particular have done really, really well in recent times. So I guess whoever's out there in Sao Paulo or, Recife or Porto Alegre or Rio or whatever, the forest cells out there, you know what I mean? Let's hope that somebody out there is watching a player and thinks he's a good. I mean, 3 million, 4 million. That's not that much to pay. And then if he turns out to be a good one, then fair enough. I guess that means that Matt Turner and Oddie won't be around much longer. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, Max, all I've noticed in terms of the transfers is this Carlos Miguel, about whom I know nothing. Stamenic, again, about whom I know nothing, but who seemed like he's going to sign for us and then go straight out to Olympiacos. It's a bit irritating, really. I'd like him to sign for us and play for us if he's that good. Why? It's almost like treating yourself to a bar of chocolate and then giving it away to somebody else, even when you really want it. I don't really understand that, to be honest. But we've done it before. It seems odd to me. But having said that, Olympiacos won a European trophy last year, so we can't sort of sneer at that too much. That's a fantastic achievement for them. And so, Mr. Marinakis has got the right to do whatever he wants in that regard. So what concerns me more, Max, is not being caught by PSR or FFP at the end of June, and we need to make sure we clear that away, because I don't want that again. I really don't. So I'd like to think that we've got to find 20 million, I believe.
Yeah, it's 20 million by the 30th of June, basically. And Forest hope. Sorry to interject, Dave, but Forest hope that they'll be able to basically find that money without even selling Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White, which is a big ask, because they hope that players like Joe Worrell, Lewis O'Brien, there is many other players that Forest could sell even at a younger academy level to raise the funds. John Percy reported in the Telegraph last week that is likely. However, Forest might just be almost in touch and distance of that amount, and it's a question. I mean, that'll be the biggest thing, almost on Marinakis's mind at the moment, and Tom Cartledge, the chairman, and people that ultimately run the football club, because they've got to find 20 million to avoid Forest being in again danger of breach of these so-called PSR rules.
Yeah, I mean, if we can avoid points deductions, at the very least, we're going to be points ahead of Leicester, who I think are going to get some kind of deduction at some point. Managerless Leicester as they are, who had a great season last year and now look to be like, in a bit of a quagmire trying to sort of get set in the Premier League. But so I just would like, I think any football fan of any club in the Premier League, and for the integrity of the competition, to see, I hate seeing a league table with asterisk against this team, 2 asterisks against this other team. Just let the stuff on the field decide who are the best team and whatever. I mean, unfortunately, that's an idealistic view, because as it is, the teams with the most money end up at the top, and the teams with the least money and the least resources end up near the bottom. It's just the way football is nowadays. But I just think it'd be nice to not have to talk about points deductions and PSR and FFP. So my big thing is I want us to be there July the 1st, and we're clear of all that. We can just and move on and just get on to thinking about who we can sign within our boundary of resources, who needs to go. I mean, it does look like Joe's going to go, probably, and I hope he does really well. Joe's been great for our club.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the goalkeepers surely has to go, because he's not going to get any. I mean, Ethan Horvath has to go somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of lads still out there on loan. Alex Martin's on loan. I think, Dale Taylor's been on loan. A lot of these lads, because the way the club has developed since it was in the Championship, a lot of those lads that we saw as being prospects, a year, 18 months ago, it's very unlikely they're going to get in the side now. So, it's time to, in a way, clear the decks and say to these lads, thanks for what you've done for Nottingham Forest. We appreciate it, always will do. Go and have good careers. But if we can like rustle up 20 million, that'd be lovely. You know what I mean? Sounds a bit cruel, really, but it's just the nature of the game. Just get PSR and get FFP away from me and my club. I can't be doing with it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Dave. I'm sure me and you can raise 20 million some way, shape, or form. We'll start like a Just Giving page for people to donate to us.
Don't hold your breath, mate.
And I was about to say, if Forest keep going into the Brazilian market to find players, then maybe me and you should have a trip over there and find some more podcast guests. You never know, we might find some more insightful Forest voices than us too.
You'd be Maximao and I'd be Asprinio, wouldn't I, or something like that? You know,
that's your new nickname sorted, Dave.
Asprinio, yeah.
What a name! Just to touch quickly before we move on Carlos Miguel, and this is all credit to a guy named Nathan Joyce, who is a journalist in football, and he specialises in the Brazilian leagues. He did a brilliant thread on Twitter, or X as it's now known. Carlos is 6'8", and Nathan says his reflexes are arguably his best attribute. His ability to react quickly from close range shots or bounce back up, and he's highly rated by the Corinthians fans. His distribution and ability with both of his feet are key assets to make it into Europe. And according to the latest stats in Brazil, he averages at 4.2 saves per game. So for a keeper, he's highly rated. I think that's what we're trying to get across with these stats.
Yeah.
And as always, and he's very highly rated in the Brazilian leagues. So it'll be interesting to see how he does for Forest, permitting his signs.
Did you say 6'8"?
6'8". He's taller than me.
Goodness me, mate. He must. I bet his feet stick out the end of the duvet, don't they, on his bed? He's probably his head goes over one end and his feet go over the other. It'd be like a steak on on a plate in an American diner, where the meat like 6'8". But then somebody made a comment this week. Pantilimon was about that height, and he wasn't fantastic, was he? Really? So we'll see. The thing is, all this talk. And then you get him, and then it's right. Let's see what you can do, mate.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what you see with the naked eye right in front of you, whether it's a City ground or anywhere else, it's like, I mean, Matt Turner had a good start to the season last year. I remember going to the Arsenal game, and Matt did all right, And then obviously, I always felt that with him and Odysseus, I always felt that like Turner was a better shot stopper, but Odysseus was better with his feet. But they were like half a goalkeeper each. If you're going to like put them together, you would have had if you'd have had
keeper, yeah.
If you'd had Matisius, like a D Turner, then you'd have been all right, But I just don't think either of them were quite good enough. And it's credit to Matt Sells that he came in, and we all stopped talking about it. I mean, Matt's is not perfect. He makes some great saves, but there were other times when he could have been a little bit more maybe commanding in his box and all this kind of stuff. So you've got to look at the goalkeeping situation, really. It's like, we should have more goalkeepers than we do stewards in the ground. I mean, it's bonkers, really. Yeah. We'll see what goes on, mate.
Yeah, that's one thing to sort for Forest, and we'll keep you updated, permitting he obviously signs and all these transfer rumours that come in, and it is difficult to talk about them. And as you said, Dave, we don't know a whole deal about it, but hopefully, if he does sign, we'll try and get either Nathan on or a journalist who's an expert in Brazilian football. Who
get Tim Vickery. Get Tim Vickery,
who can shed much more light on it than me and Dave. Right, before we go, and we've got to touch on this, and many Forest fans will be out. It's a very sad week for football at the weekend. Very, very sad indeed, especially with the Millwall keeper passing as well. We have to touch on the sad news that the former Forest player, football legend, Forest legend, Kevin Campbell, sadly passed away. Dave, you spent quite a bit of time with Kevin and did have the pleasure of speaking to him on a slightly regular basis. I suppose just give us some of your memories of him and almost just lead the tribute, because it's very, very sad news.
It's incredibly sad news. It's a tragedy, really, because I was like, I'm very privileged to do some streams with Kevin and get to talk to him. He was hilarious. He was larger than life. He was just positive. He just lit up a room. He lit up any atmosphere that he was in. He had style, he had charisma, he had panache, pizzazz, you name it, he had it. I mean, he's a brilliant footballer. You know, he did great work for Arsenal. He did great work for us. As we were saying before, he was so good that Pierre Van Hooijdonk went on strike when we got rid of him. That's how much, you know, Van Hooijdonk looked up to Kevin. Kevin was a kind of a leader, but in a nice way. He has had, you know, so much class. He was humble, down to earth. He was just the loveliest guy. I mean, I did a couple of streams with him. I mean, they're friends of mine and friends of yours, Max, who are far closer to Kevin than I am. So I can't say I knew him that well. But the times I spent talking to him, he was funny. I tell you what, he's really knowledgeable. And he, you know, he didn't sort of, you know, I was a great footballer, this, that, and the other. He was just a humble, lovely fella. And, you know, it struck me. I watched the streams again, and they were from like about 14 months ago, 18 months ago. And Kevin looked the picture of health. He looked, you know, big, powerful, beautiful sort of aura about him that you wouldn't imagine. And that he's no longer there is just so difficult to comprehend. And if you think about it, and Max, I've had, as you know, I've had bereavements these last sort of 7-8 months that have knocked me back. But then I think about Kevin at such a young age to be taken, and not long after dear old Chris Bart-Williams. You know, I met, again, unbelievably lucky and privileged to have met guys who've been good enough to wear our Garibaldi red and go out on that green swathe of grass, right? And they were humble and they were funny and they were lovely lads, and they were the healthiest looking guys you've ever seen. Bartman, it was a picture of health. You almost thought to yourself, chuck him a shirt, he can play for Forest now, even though he'd been out of the game for a while. And same with Kevin. And they're not here. And it's just, I mean, it's just the vicissitudes of life. You know, these things come along and you just can't get your head around it. And I know a lot of our fans who've met Kevin and he touched their lives, and he'll never be forgotten. I mean, he's immortal now, but that he won't be around to enjoy watching Arsenal this season and watching Everton this season, watching us this season. And he's been a fantastic sort of supporter. He's been even-handed. He does a lot of Arsenal because he's from that part of the country, but he's always very, very positive and knowledgeable about Forest as he's about Everton. And I just think it's that he won't get to see, you know, another Premier League season with these teams, and he's done great credit to him. It's incredibly sad, and having spoke to him and having had some good laughs with him on streams, it's just a very, very sad time. And I would imagine that game against Bournemouth, some kind of tribute will be paid to him, because, you know, nobody deserves it more. A lovely man, a superb footballer, and an even more superb human being, mate. So yeah, honoured to have met him, and sad that he's gone, but he'll never be forgotten.
Yeah. Lovely words, Dave. Very, very nice words.
Thanks, mate.
To end the podcast. And of course, everyone at Garibaldi Red and the Nottingham Post would like to send their best wishes to Kev's family as well, because just really, really sad news at the weekend, and sad news in terms of football as a whole, especially with Alan Hansen as well falling ill, which Gary Lineker paid brilliant tribute to ahead of England's coverage as well.
Yeah, on Alan Hansen, apparently I read a couple of days ago that Graham Souness had been to see Alan Hansen, and I think the report was a little bit more positive. So let's hope Alan Hansen comes around to and again, a hell of a player and a great character. You know, as a pundit, he was he never win anything with kids. I mean, he's immortal. He was immortal before all this, and he'll stay immortal for that. Yeah. Let's hope. You know, in fact, let's just hope that anybody anywhere who's having a bad time, not feeling very well, is feeling better soon. Let's get everybody in.
Definitely, spot on, mate. And yeah, fingers crossed that England do all right. Not tomorrow, the day after, Thursday. Where are we? I've lost track of the week already. Thursday against Denmark, difficult game, but we'll see. Right, that does us nicely. Quick few bits of promo before we go. There's a great podcast we did last week talking of footballing legends, which is by Ben Dobson. He writes a brilliant book and he's just released it the last few weeks on 3 footballing legends. And Brian Clough features in it, and it's a really, really good read. And we did a podcast with him where he shares some funny stories with John McGovern and Tony Woodcock and working with those. So recommend you go and listen to that we did last week. And hopefully next week, me and Sarah will be back with something a bit different as well. But we'll keep you updated throughout, even though there's not too much to talk about. And on fixture release day, we start to dream about what happens next season. Dave, you never know, mate. We could be talking about Champions League, but there you go. See, a week in the sun, that's what it does to you, mate.
Mate, I'll just take beating Bournemouth because we haven't done it for ages. That would be a fantastic thing to beat AFC Bournemouth at blooming last. You know what I mean? The Tinkers always do us, don't they? You know what I mean? Yes. So yeah, let's just go a step at a time. Please beat Bournemouth, Forest.
Yes.
I could almost live off that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, we can go home happy after that. Right, that does us nicely. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us across Apple and Spotify podcasts. Do leave us a review if you'd enjoy. From me and Dave, come on England for Thursday. Come on you Reds. And we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.